8 Misleading Statistics, and in this lesson you learn to recognize when statistics and graphs are misleading. Let's take a look at this example. During political campaigns, politicians often use statistics to make a point. In recent election, opposing candidates represented the two graphs shown below. Okay, and you have graph 1, which looks something like this, graph 2, which looks something like this. First question, do both graphs show the same information? And second question, which graph suggests a drastic cut in government spending? Which graph suggests fairly steady spending? Okay, let's answer the first question. Okay, and this is a graph about Governor Doolittle spending habits. Okay, graph 1 and graph 2. And if you notice, even though they look different, both graphs represent the same data. They were graphed from using the same data, but by using a different scale, each candidate was able to take the same information and tell a very different story. In graph 1, the scale was 0 to 300. Look at graph 2. It's 216 to 228. Okay? So, what does that mean? Okay, so in this case, if you look at this very carefully, graph 2 is a result of an expanded vertical scale. Okay, for this reason, graph 2 is visually misleading when compared to the complete scale in graph 1. This should be indicated by using a small break in the vertical axis as shown at the right. Okay, this break that we're talking about. This shows that the axis is not to scale between 0 to 220. So if you create a scale, you will tell the person reading this graph that this is not drawn to scale, because 0 to 220 will have a different interval from 220 and 222. This will prevent your graph from becoming misleading. Okay? Let's take a look at example number 1 and see what a misleading graph is. The graph displays the same data. Is graph A misleading? Explain. Let's look at graph A. Okay. Obviously, there are a lot of questions you want to ask in graph A. Therefore, this can be misleading because there is no title on the graph. There are no labels, okay, on either scale. It should also include a break in the vertical axis between 0 and 30. So graph A is misleading. But if you take a look at graph B, okay, has a title, has labels in both, starts with 0, intervals are fairly the same. So graph B is not misleading. The scales are labeled and the graph includes a title. Okay? So graph B is not misleading because it has all the necessary requirements to be fully understood. Good example number 2. Nope. Example number 2 is probably below this one. No, it's not.